Yes.
So, I actually have moments where I totally get it and like know that it's a lie, like tap into what's true. But they're just like moments. Like they don't. I'm like, how do you make them stay?
That's what the process is. The process is working on the human level, catching the problem is that scripts take us out of transcendental consciousness because there's such an integral. We're so immersed in this human experience, and these fears are such a part of our immersion, our personal immersion, that they keep yanking us back out. The fact is, if you never listened to Hub, that wouldn't happen. Yes?
I think I'm understanding Hub and the God part, but what's in the middle? I love black and white, so I love those two extremes, but I figure I probably live somewhere in the middle.
Well, the fact is that at any given time you're either in God consciousness or human consciousness. And there's not a middle, there's one or the other, and you're in one or the other, and what we look at as different levels of consciousness is really percentages of time spent in one place or the other. The truly enlightened beings are spending 100% in God, the truly vicious beings are spending 100% in human consciousness, and most of us are spending, 10 and 90 or 20 and 80 or whatever we're doing one way or the other. And the question is just learning to be in God consciousness and stay there. There were 3 more hands.
I just think I did some of my meetings, and it was like a great speaker, and just like you, I was driving, and I was all in my fears, and I was driving, and this great speaker, she's so great, I listened to it over and over, and it always takes me out of it, and I realized, okay, I get it, I get it. It's like you can't drive around listening to it. You know what I mean? I just can't always.
Yes, you can drive around always listening to that, and that's the consciousness you want to attain. That you always are aware of the presence of God.
How do you do that when you're not,
Well, that's in a good way. I mean, it'd really be good for all of you to find some enlightened master who lifts you to where you're aware of that. But
I go back to my 2-year-old and 2-month-old, and
and you think they're not God. And you think the presence of God isn't there. Or you could remember that the presence of God is there. Let's move on to Anne.
I'm trying to understand, from what I understand in the past about the script, it was kind of like this trifecta of either in spiritual consciousness or hub or kid. And like for me, it's very clear when I'm in my 6-year-old kid, my 16-year-old kid, or I'm in hub. Now, is it all-inclusive now? Like, is it kind of like, here we're kid and hub are all one?
Yeah, what we used to call hub is just your personal sense. It's just the personal sense of humanhood. That's just your sense that I'm Anne rather than that I'm God. That's all kid ever was a particular part of you, of your consciousness, of your belief structure, of your personal, there's a personal database. It's a particular part of your consciousness that is accepting this fear, that's buying this fear that Hub is broadcasting. Okay?
One of them seems internal, like the kid one maybe is from, a rooted situation where the hub is collectively.
Exactly, We'll call the internal ones personal sense, and we'll call what we used to call spiritual adult is hub. I'm sorry, universal parent. We used to call parent is the impersonal hub out there broadcasting these lies at you. And when I buy these lies, that means that I now am thinking I'm a separate individual, and this is true for me, and I've personalized them. This is what we mean by personal sense. The second half of this workshop is going to be about personal sense, but I've personalized them, and I have at least done that for every fear I have. And it's true that I do feel at different ages when I'm in different fears, and it is very personal. But it's the same thing. It's still the same fear, and once again, there's absolutely nothing sustaining that. It's just a belief that you have that you've accepted that is only sustained by your rehearsing it. There's nothing else that can possibly, you are conditioned to accept that particular belief in Hub. And that needs to be stopped. Jill.
Realizing that I'm really uncomfortable when I am experiencing Hub, I want to go straight to my God consciousness stuff. So
yeah.
I actually heard someone suggest in a meeting to put your watch on your right hand or whatever hand you usually don't wear it on. I don't know if I've ever heard of it. And try and think of God or say thank you, God, every time you realize it's on your right hand. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing that, and I realize it like 20 times a day. And it's really helped me, trying to keep my spiritual dial tuned to the spiritual experience.
Perfect.
But also I'm wondering if, while we're doing this work, if you have any suggestions for a meditation practice, like what would you suggest, like how many minutes a day and how often? Because I just do 15 minutes in the morning. I was wondering if there's a...
I can talk with you about that personally. Give me a call and I'll talk with you about that. It's different for every person, and I think you will find that just naturally expands by itself. I think your earlier comment is a very good one, and Joel talks about, every time you walk out the door, remember that God's going with you, or take God with you, and we have a master here of stupid God tricks who has a collection of them. But yeah, lots of things that you can do to shake to remind you to remember who you are, as many of them as you can come up with, to remind you of who you are is really good. Your meditation practice, mind just keeps expanding and keeps expanding and keeps expanding, and see what that's like. The fact is that if you're sleeping 7 hours a night, then you have available 3 hours, then you have time to meditate 3 hours a day. Because the body needs rest, complete total rest, 7 hours a day. But it doesn't need to be asleep 7 hours a day. It needs to be asleep for like 3 hours a day, or long enough time for the brain to unscramble and you to dream, and so that the subconscious doesn't go squirrely. But if you sleep 3 hours a day, your brain gets all the time it needs to do that stuff, and that leaves 4 hours available for meditation. And you could spend that time sitting quietly rather than sleeping, and your body would get just as much rest. And the purpose of the rest is to flush the toxins out of your body, and it's just a flush. It's all sleep is. It's just a subconscious unwind and a flush. And the flush will happen whether you're sitting in meditation or asleep. So there is time that your meditation can expand into, and it doesn't need to expand forward into your day and cut down on your time in your day. It can expand backwards into your sleep. So keep that in mind. But I don't tell people how long they should meditate. And another thing is more frequently rather than longer. But your stupid God trick suggestion is a good one. Putting the watch on the wrong wrist is perfect. The idea is to keep this forefront in your mind, as is having an audio in your car, or these tapes and the CDs that are up there are all good stuff to have in your car or beside your bed. Excellent for when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and Hub starts telling you how worthless you are. You just plunk in a tape, and if you've been listening, there are 40 people that have been through this house that have listened to the Joel Goldsmith tapes so long that now they put on a Joel tape and they're at peace in like 3 minutes, just because they've heard that voice and gotten peaceful over it for so many times, So that's another stupid God trick that really works.
if I may.
Yeah.
This is Jay. I'd really like to encourage you that if you're starting out on this, that the fears need to be fed. And any time that you can start to subtract media from your day, you are making a huge spiritual leap forward because you're allowing time for God. And it doesn't, if you can stop the amount of television you watch by 25%, that's 25% less garbage you have to get out. And it's with all that stuff. So if you can just make an experiment and try 3 days, try spending a day without a television on and see what happens. And I know it's very, very difficult because it's grooved in the being, but it's tremendous.
Yeah, and I strongly suggest you stop reading newspapers and magazines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's absolutely nothing useful in magazines or newspapers. Well, I don't know about magazines, news magazines, news papers, news broadcasts. It's Hub telling you its fears and supported by a large commercial industry who want to tell you everything's wrong with you and how to fix it materially. So I strongly suggest that you pay attention to what you're watching on television, knock out news and knock out sitcoms and knock out, all that. Sitcoms are so successful because they are nothing but script and resistance behaviors, and 99% of the 7 billion relate. There's nothing less surreal than a reality show.
What about sports?
And I watch sports.
So you don't think it's garbage?
Of course it is, but
It's a vehicle to sell beer and trucks, which is okay if you realize.
I watch sports, I watch concerts, I watch music, I watch lots of stuff. I don't have any objection. I'm not saying anything wrong with television. If you want to spend some time, and it takes time away from other things, but if you want to choose to spend some time watching a football game or something, why wouldn't you? I don't have anything about that. I'm just saying that the news, what they call news, those of you who are older may recall when Geraldo first came out. He was the guy that put on a show in which he started picking up the really emotional stuff in the news and making half-hour big dramatic thing about it. And that was so successful that now all the network news programs are Geraldo shows. Nothing but drama and sad thing. Listen to the organ music in a news broadcast, and the deep emotional music. Their news programs are nothing about nothing other than trying to pull your heart to it. In fact, ESPN does that. Every hour they've got a 5-minute thing about some sad situation that some jock family is in. And that's all reinforcing the Hub belief. So it's omnipresent.
I read, and I didn't say this out loud. You didn't hear it from me. But Oprah has Super Soul Sunday, and she interviews Miriam Williamson, all spiritual leaders, one-on-one. And so I just, out of the blue, decided probably to stop watching Here Comes Honey Boo Boo and take my murder. And honestly, I've been obsessed with murder shows and just, and I found it, again, I'm not going to claim that in the public level, but it's each Sunday she interviews another spiritual teacher. And it's like all these concepts, whether you believe them or not. It's
cooking your brain, a little deprogramming. Yeah, all that's wonderful.